From being extremely injury-prone in the past to now putting his team in trouble because of another leg injury, it looks like Paul George will be missing the playoff series against the Suns. Fans are dying to know, could things be over for him in general? And what even happened that led us here? First, let's go over what caused his injury in the first place. The Los Angeles Clippers have been on a serious roll this season. They were recently on a hot streak of 5 games in which the team was unbeaten. On the 18th of March last month, the team stepped onto the court. They were looking forward to adding another win against the Oklahoma City Thunder to their streak. Things started off well enough, and Paul George landed a dunk for the history books.
Clippers by 1 coming out of the timeout. 4:25 to play. George!
Oh my goodness! A swiveling Skywalker!
But the team's chances took a bad turn as George tried to grab a rebound from Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. On the landing, his leg collided with Luguentz Dort's, and it wasn't just any leg either.
On the switch, picked up by the long arms of Covington, lets it fly from 17, the shot is short. George goes down. A whistle, I believe a loose ball foul will be called before the basket from Dort.
Clippers fans will know that Paul's right leg has been kind of a ticking time bomb. It had been causing him trouble for 4 months now, but George kept playing on it anyway. Well, this incident caused the bomb to go off. It was clear right then that something terrible had happened. Fortunately, though, he avoided the worst case scenario. Fans know that there are a few injuries in the leg area that can basically end an athlete's career, cause, once they happen, there's no going back. There were concerns that he had torn one of his ligaments in that leg. So what exactly were the details of his injury? Well, when the diagnosis was revealed, it turned out that he had suffered a bad case of knee sprain. But not only that, according to reports, he's now dealing with a strained right hip flexor as well. The hip flexors are a group of muscles located in the front of the hip that help to lift the leg and bend the hip joint. Strains occur when these muscles are stretched or torn beyond their normal range of motion, causing pain and weakness in the affected area. Fans may know that these are common injuries in basketball and other sports that involve jumping and quick changes of direction. They can be caused by overuse, fatigue, or a sudden movement that puts too much stress on the muscles. Treatment typically involves rest, ice, and physical therapy to strengthen the affected muscles and improve the range of motion. The severity of his injuries is unclear at this time, but it's definitely serious enough to keep him out of the lineup for at least the first few games of the series against the Suns. The Clippers have not yet provided any specific timeline for his return, but it's possible that he could miss the entire series depending on how his rehab goes. Now that's definitely a tough break for the Clippers. Could this affect their chances against the Suns? Well, losing a player of George's caliber is never easy, but the Clippers have shown all season that they can still compete and win without him. They've got a deep roster with guys like Kawhi Leonard, Marcus Morris, and Reggie Jackson who can step up and make plays.
He wants to go back at Westbrook again. Yep. Switch it with James and a 3 by Jackson. That guy's got the stroke. 34 points.
But it's important to know that the Suns are also a really tough team. They've got Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton playing at a really high level right now. But again, the Clippers have also been playing some great basketball lately, and I think they still have a good chance to win the series even without George. It'll definitely be interesting to see how it all plays out. There's some good news though. Paul's career isn't over or anything like that. He'll definitely be back playing for the Clippers next season. In fact, on his own podcast called Podcast P, he stated that he felt the Clippers were the right team for him. So this definitely isn't the end of the line for him with the team. The bad news is, the Clippers are looking to wait 2 to 3 weeks to evaluate him for a return to the court. And as it happens, there are only 2 or 3 weeks left in the regular season. That means the team now has to face the possibility of scoring a spot in the playoffs without one of its star players. And it wasn't wasn't like they were a lock for the playoffs just yet. This has been a tight season in the Western Conference. With 9 games left to go, the Clippers are only leading the Golden State Warriors by 1 game for the 5 seed. They're also only ahead of the Thunder in 7 by 1.5 games. It would only take a few losses for the team to go from hopeful to locked out of the playoffs. At the bottom of the playoff standing is fellow Los Angeles team, the Lakers, and they're behind only by 2.5 games. So these next few games are going to be very crucial for the Clippers. But also, don't be mistaken, it's not that there's a lack of talent on the Clippers roster right now. This team is home to Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook, 2 players who aren't to be underestimated.
Clippers out in front by 4. If you're just joining us, they scored the first 5 points of the game, and then Memphis went on an 18-0 run, and then Russell Westbrook went wild. 20 for Westbrook.
Meanwhile, they also host veteran players Eric Gordon, Mason Plumlee, Nicholas Batum, and Marcus Morris. Players like these are why the conversation is about how hard it is for the Clippers to qualify and not how impossible it is. There's no denying, though, that Paul was having one of the best seasons of his career right now.
9 to shoot for Reggie Jackson. Clippers really struggled in that second quarter, just 6 for 17. Paul George.
He isn't just the highest scoring player on the team right now, you see. His scoring accounts for 21% of all the points the Clippers are earning from game to game. When you put that together with the fact that the Clippers streak was broken by a 1-point loss, you can see how devastating this injury could prove to be for the team. It doesn't help that, in addition to George's absence, the team is also missing Norman Powell, the 3rd best scorer on the squad.
Powell stays out there. Clippers just looking for a bucket. Powell trying to deliver in the corner, and he does.
Powell was taken out by a shoulder injury earlier this month, and it isn't just the lack of players that's gonna prove challenging for the Clippers. The team has a pretty rough schedule for the closing leg of the season. Of the last few games the team has left in the regular season, only 5 of them will be on their home turf. There they'll be playing the Thunder again, as well as the New Orleans Pelicans, Chicago Bulls, the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Lakers. Oh, and where's Paul when you need him? You're probably sitting somewhere feeling really bad about how things have shaken out. But again, don't get me wrong, he has always been a fantastic player and one for fans and the NBA to keep an eye on. But here's the thing, he's never had a championship ring. Considering the fact that he's 13 years into his professional career, time is running out. While I'm not suggesting that George is on the verge of retiring or something, you only have so many shots to get that ring. He was having a great season, and the Clippers were generally firing on all cylinders. If his leg hadn't given out on him, the Clippers were set to cruise into the playoffs, and this could have been their time to take home the gold. Now, how do we know for sure that this knee will never become an issue for him again? We can only cross our fingers and hope that he can make up for this setback over time. And that's all we have on Paul George missing the playoff series due to his injury.